Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. We are on day 7 of us diving deeper in Scientology, specifically in this series, more so the religion itself, less so the impact it's had on people. We are obviously going to be covering all of that. This is an absolutely huge thing to cover, so who knows how long this whole thing is going to run. But today we're going to be talking about this auditing that they do, right? These engrams, this e-meter, this thing that they do, the process that you're put through in order to delete the problematic memories from your reactive mind that is stopping you from becoming the version of yourself that, according to L. Ron Hubbard, if left alone, is mostly good and would behave well, because we are mostly good as humans with evil added, according to L. Ron Hubbard. So we're going to look at this today. So just to backtrack and just to give you guys some context, I'm also going to be referencing this guide here because it gives a guide to the procedure in this. It tells you exactly step by step. So we're going to go through this, how you audit the person. So for when I went to my, my own, personality test situation, I was told, they were telling me at the end, like the guy who was interviewing me or was doing my graph, reviewing my graph, was telling me that they don't do therapy. What they do is they call it auditing. And auditing is what they do to, well, you know what? Let me not even tell you. Let me tell you what they say according to the website of the Scientology.org.uk. Because I decided to just swing around looking at this online. Also, can anybody tell me, I know Paula was the one who mentioned I should watch the Leah Remini documentary. Can somebody tell me where I can watch it? Because I looked for it on Netflix and it's not there, which I'm just like, excuse me. So somebody can tell me where I can find it. Obviously I can look for it myself, but I just thought I'll ask just in case somebody else gets there before I do, because I was planning on watching it before this video. But anyways, nevertheless, so what is auditing? So this is the process they put you through. You've come in, you've done your graph, you've done your personality test, they've sold you. We just want to help you. We just want to help you to be able to be your ability in your understandings, right? What is the ability they look for? Your ability to handle your environment well, right, is what they were talking about. And so now you're put in this process called auditing. So let's read from the Scientology.org. I'm not going to read every single bit that's in this under what is auditing. This is under frequently asked questions. You guys can go and check it for yourself as well if you're interested. I will read the bits that I think are important for right now because I'd really like us to look at this e-meter, these engrams, right? So the goal of auditing is to restore beingness and ability. So the thing that I said before, what is beingness? Your beingness is your ability. What is it? I said it before. Oh gosh, here she goes again. Beingness and ability. So that's the number one aim pretty much of all of this, is to increase your beingness, which I was also evaluated. So the first 3 points, here it is. The ability of an individual to be able to live or handle the environment around them. Let's just leave this out because this is actually helpful. This is accomplished by 1, helping individuals rid themselves of any spiritual disabilities. That's already sounding wild. And 2, increasing spiritual abilities. Now, here's the thing I want to just go ahead and mention real quick right now, is that Scientology, again, does a very good job of just mixing a lot of vague terminologies together so that we're all buying into something, or we are not, but people are buying into something that is vague enough in enough areas that it kind of makes sense but doesn't make sense. Because again, it's Scientology, it's knowledge of truth, but then the basis of what we're talking about right now is all to do with the spirit and the spiritualness. So what is it exactly we're doing here is my question. Nevertheless, obviously, both are necessary for an individual to achieve his full spiritual potential. Oh, so we're talking spiritual potential now, I see. Auditing then deletes life's painful experiences and addresses and improves one's ability to confront and handle the factors in his life. Okay. Through auditing, one is able to look at one's own existence and improve one's ability to confront what one is and where one is. There are vast differences between the technology of auditing, a religious practice, and other practices. There is no use of hypothesis, trance techniques, or drugs during auditing. The person being audited is completely aware of everything that happens. Auditing is precise, thoroughly codified, and has exact procedures. Yada, 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 yada. A person trained and qualified to better individuals through auditing is called an auditor. Auditor is defined as one who listens, from the Latin audire, or dia. I'm not sure, sorry guys, meaning to hear or to listen. An auditor is a minister or a minister in training of the Church of Scientology. A person receiving auditing is called a pre-clear, meaning a person not yet clear. So you're not yet clear. We had a lot of discussion about being clear and getting to the state of clarity when I went for this test thing that they did. A pre-clear is someone who, through auditing, is finding out about themselves and life. The period of time during which an auditor audits a pre-clear is called an auditing session. A session is conducted at an agreed upon time established by the auditor and the pre-clear. Auditing uses processes, exact sets of questions asked or directions given by an auditor to help a person locate areas of spiritual distress. So we're not even talking mental distress, we're talking spiritual distress. Interesting. Find out things about themselves and improve their condition. There are many, many different auditing processes, and each one improves the individual's ability to confront and handle part of their existence when there's blah, 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 blah. I'm skipping to the end. There are no variables in the technology of auditing, no random results of haphazard applications. Auditing is not a period of vague free association. Each process is exact in its design and its application and attains a definite result when correctly ministered. Scientology auditing can bring anyone from a condition of spiritual blindness to the brilliant joy of knowing. So there's this obsession that we have as humans with knowing. Like, it's so weird. Like, I know that it's something that's part of our DNA as far as us being humans and not God, is that we have this thing that we want to know, which is not a bad thing, right? It's not a bad thing. It's actually interesting to me that we have the word know as we use it in the Bible. A lot of time when the word know is used, it's actually referring to sexual intimacy. So like in the Bible, when Adam and Eve got pregnant, it says, and then Adam knew his wife. And I've been asking God about this. Whenever God drops the revelation about that, I will let you guys know, because I've been like, God, go deeper and explain to me why the word know is used alongside sex or sexual intimacy. I'm very curious for that. So I'll let you guys know when the Lord answers that question for me, because that's a question I have recently asked the Lord. What we're going to be talking about in this is we're going to talk about Scientology's idea of this auditing process. So in here, I have the procedure, the exact procedure of how you're supposed to audit someone. Now, before we read this, I want to go more into this thing this thing that they do, this engram. Now, this engram, right, an engram, let me get the official definition, is actually a scientific term. So let me just get the definition for this. I should have done this beforehand, but it won't take me long. Because I like to, with this stuff, I prefer to give you guys like actual definitions with something from somewhere, because my version of regurgitating information sometimes can be horror. Which one sounds English enough that I can read it? Okay, so it says a physical alteration of neural tissue in the brain posited to explain how memories are formed, right? So basically, pictures in your brain hold on, let me just bear with me. Let me do where's the example I had earlier? So the mental image pictures, pretty much, of what you've experienced in your life on a neural basis, on a scientific basis. So again, I find it interesting because for me, as a scientific person as well, who's a believer in the spiritual world and whatnot, I do generally find, I would have to say that I find science often has ways of explaining spiritual experiences in a scientific manner. So for example, scientists will agree that our dream life, they consider to be the 4D, the fourth dimension, right? Although spiritual people might suggest that is a stronger access or a clearer experience in the spiritual world than when we're in our natural sense. So I just find it interesting how we're flip-flopping, or rather L. Ron Hubbard is flip-flopping between when he thinks of spirit and when things are science. Because the E-meter, so this is the E-meter is used to read these engrams in your brain's helping you to figure out what's going on in your brain. I'm going to explain how this works according again to this www.scientology.org. E-meter is a shortened term for electropsychometer. It is a religious artifact, which is already a bold, wild thing to say. used as a spiritual guidance in auditing. So a religious artifact used as a spiritual guide in auditing. It is for use only by a Scientology minister or a Scientology minister in training to help the pre-clear, not yet clear person locate and confront areas of spiritual upset. Now, I did research for this video to try and figure out, how does this work? Because I'm a scientist. I'm like, tell me how it works. I want to know exactly how this works. Basically, what I'm understanding is it can read the neurodermal charges coming from your brain. So what I'm assuming, from my understanding, because again, when I searched up this stuff, you guys can go and search it for yourself. Maybe it'll be different if you're in another country. Because as I established, courtesy of some of my subscribers, is that some of the stuff I see being in the UK, I don't see what other people see in other places of the world, which is also why I'm asking about this Leah Remini thing on Netflix. I'm like, is this something that they're trying to hide in the UK? Because I'm like, is this what's happening? So anyway, what I'm understanding of how this process works, which is hard to find information, like I said, because when you search for this stuff, all the Scientology stuff comes up. And as we know, everything that Scientology is telling us themselves or has had a hand on influencing, they are obviously going to swerve the understanding to suit what they're trying to get us to understand, obviously to pull people in, obviously to brainwash people, to indoctrinate us, to trick us, to lie to us, so that we trust in what they're talking about. So anyway, what I've understood by putting my own scientific understanding on top of what I've read is that the charge, obviously our neurons in our brain and all of our neural, whatever's, without getting too scientific, there is charge in our bodies, right, as we know, which is why even when you're dying, they use what to bring you back to life? A defibrillator, throwing a charge into your body to bring you back to life. In our brain, there's charges going through with our neurons and what are they called? The neurons and everything. And so what I'm understanding is, obviously, when you are envisioning things, if you're being scanned in a different type of way, there's lots of different scans, being exposed to certain types of things either in front of you or being asked to think about certain things is going to cause activity in your brain that can be observed using modern scientific technology. That is my understanding of this electropsychometer, is that they are basically using this so that when you're going through these things, they can evaluate what your type of reaction you're having to it based on the charge that is coming out into this electropsychometer when you are recalling these so-called memories, right? Which are the engrams in your brain. And so the idea is to delete them so that when you go through this process, ultimately you don't react to hearing, to seeing or thinking about these things anymore, which will get more into that as we look into the procedural booklet in just a moment. So that's my understanding, guys, as far as now. So let's go more into this. What Scientology is saying on Scientology.org. .uk as well. Okay, interesting. In itself, the e-meter does nothing. It is an electronic instrument that measures mental state and change of state in individuals and assists the precision and speed of auditing. The e-meter is not intended or effective for the diagnosis, treatment, or prevention of any disease. So again, like I said, from what I understand, it's a measuring charge in your brain. In order to understand how the e-meter works, it is necessary to understand some basic Scientology concepts. So let's hear what they have to say, because I haven't read this before I gave you guys my little understanding. So let's see what they have to say. There are three basic parts of man: mind, body, and Thetan. It says this here. So notice how this Thetan thing is coming up again. We talked about this yesterday, and I sound like a crazy person talking about Xenu and all this from 75 million years ago, the galactic overlord. But here we have it on the very website. You can all go search yourself and read along if you want to. Don't recommend. There's way more important things you should be searching. Actually, if you want the peace of mind, listen, guys, listen. I'm not the type of person who says follow me. I'm just sharing with you guys my own research. Always be your own independent researcher. That's what we believe in here on the winning team. Also, whoever, I am still working on the manifesto. The manifesto is still on its way. The Thetan is an immortal spiritual being, the individual himself. The Thetan inhabits a body and has a mind, which is a collection of mental image pictures. The pictures in the mind contain energy and mass. Okay, so we're going into E equals MC squared right now. The energy and force in pictures of painful or upsetting experiences can have a harmful effect upon an individual. This harmful energy or force is called charge. Okay, we need to find an equation. I'm pretty sure, because I need to just, sorry guys, I'm going into scientific mode. Because, hold on. Because this has to have an equation. Like, this just has to. I'm just convinced. Because the way it's saying energy, mass, force, charge, there's got to be an equation that's got this. Let's see. Electronic force, value of, no. Oh gosh, all these flipping. Okay. Am I getting sidetracked? Oh, I wish they included it. I'm sure that there's an equation for this because it sounds so familiar. Initially, I was thinking E equals mc squared. But I've never used that. Do you know that we never used that, by the way, during my chemistry degree? I'm pretty sure that's an outdated equation. That's why I'm thinking it can't be that. Because I'm pretty sure that's been proven to not even be... Oh, for goodness sake. Okay, never mind, guys. Never mind. I'm sure there's an equation anyways that this thing is being based on. I wish I could have found it. That would have been so cool. Anyways, because then I could have explained it. Anyway, when the E meter is operating... So yeah, this harmful energy or force is called charge. So the harmful energy they're saying is a charge. Now, okay, we'll come back to that. When the E meter is operating, a person holds the meter's electrodes, a very tiny flow of electrical energy, about 1.5 volts, less than a flashlight battery, passes down the wires of the E meter leads through the person's body and back into the E meter. The electrical flow is so small there is no physical sensation when holding the electrodes. When the person thinks a thought, looks at a picture in their mind, re-experiences an incident, or shifts some part of the reactive mind, they are moving and changing actual mental mass and energy. These changes in the mind influence the tiny flow of electrical energy generated by the E-meter, causing the needle on its dial to move. The needle reactions on the E-meter tell the auditor where the charge lies and that it should be addressed through auditing. So the needle reaction on the E-meter tells the auditor where the charge lies and that it should be addressed through auditing. Now, I'm immediately thinking I have to find this equation. Not today, not right now, but I have to find this now because I'm sure that there is an equation that this whole thing is based off of, or equations, a set of equations. And I feel like once I look into that, that's going to give rise to what the hell they're actually doing with this E-meter. Because one of the things that I know as a scientist that happens a lot is scientific people love to use all this scientific mumbo jumbo words to throw people off of things that could be more understandable. This is a little bit too vague for my liking. So I'm just going to go ahead and search that in my own time. Anyways, so that's how this thing is working. So essentially, they're getting you to recall memories to see if that was traumatizing or whatever. If you remember it, then when you remember it, if there's a charge or whatever, that means we need to deal with it. Now, how do we go about that process? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have a little booklet here that I got from, the DVD that I got when I went to the thingamabob. You guys know what I'm talking about. How to use Dianetics procedure guide. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go through the step-by-step because it tells you step-by-step how to do this. So step 1, listen to this. Assure the pre-clear. Actually, should I do this first? Actually, I'm going to make a point first before I do this. No, we're going to do this first. Assure the pre-clear, he or she will know everything that happens. So this is for the auditor. Tell the pre-clear. So you're the pre-clear. You're not clear yet. You don't have clarity. You're a pre-clear. You will remain aware of everything which goes on. You'll be able to remember everything that happens here. You can pull yourself out of anything which you get into if you don't like it. I think we all know that last line right there is number one lie of Scientology, isn't it? Because people don't just get to walk away when they want to do. They know they don't. And that's one of the biggest issues that we're having right now. And then step 2, have the pre-clear close his or her eyes. Tell the pre-clear, close your eyes. Then it says install canceller. Install canceller. So for me, this already, we're talking about people. It's saying install, like install into their brain. Tell the pre-clear, in the future, when I utter the word cancelled, everything which I said to you while you were in a therapy session will be cancelled and will have no force with you. Any suggestion I have made to you will be without force when I say the word cancelled. Do you understand? So everything which I have said to you while you are in a therapy session will be cancelled and will have no force with you. So doesn't that immediately contradict step 1 that says you will remain of everything which goes on. You'll be able to remember everything that happens here. You can pull yourself out of anything which you get into if you don't like it. So you're saying it's going to get cancelled Because essentially this reminds me of like when you have people that hypnotize people and then they have the words where they're like, you know, when I do this, when I click my fingers and then this, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so then step 4, return pre-clear to a period in the past. Tell the pre-clear, let's go to the earliest moment of pain or discomfort. We all know about this. If you guys don't know the build up to here, you need to watch the other videos because we're just going through, we're building up organically as I'm just organically sharing with you guys as seems some kind of a logical step-by-step process here. And then step 5A, work with the file clerk to get data. So I'm assuming the file clerk is the person who's actually getting the data or reading the charges while you're talking to the, collecting the data while you're talking to the person. Tell the pre-clear, it says, begin at the beginning and recount it. Say continue when you want the pre-clear to keep on progressing along. And at this point, you're telling the story. Well, there was this one time when I was crossing the road and I nearly got hit by a car, you know, This is what you're saying. Then it goes, step 5B, work with the file clerk to get data. Ask the pre-clear questions to get data, such as, what do you hear? What does she say? Are there any sounds there? What do you see? What do you feel? What's the somatic? Contact the somatic. How does it smell? How do they smell? What's the tactile on it? What color is blank? Step 6A, reduce all engrams contacted so that no charge remains. Tell the pre-clear, go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact. So basically, what I'm understanding here is that as long as there is an extra charge, you still haven't recounted everything yet. I'm not sure. We'll see. Step 6B, reduce all your engrams contacted so that no charge remains. If an incident does not reduce after many recountings, ask, is there an earlier incident like this? So basically, clearly, this is still causing charges. This is still some pain there. There's still something that we haven't quite got to the root cause of. So is there something that happened before that's also connecting with this thing that's happening now? If the pre-clear says yes, have him go to the earlier incident and recount it, starting at step 5A again. Beginning at the beginning and recount it. If not, go back. If not, have the pre-clear return to the beginning of the incident being run. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pick up whatever additional data you can contact. So you have to go till there's no charge remains, okay? Pretty much. Step 7, bring the pre-clear to the present time. Tell the pre-clear, come to the present time. That was step 7. Step 8, be sure the pre-clear is in the present time. Ask the pre-clear, are you in the present time? Give the pre-clear the canceller word. Tell the pre-clearer, cancelled. Restore full awareness of the pre-clear surroundings. Tell the pre-clear, when I count from 5 to 1 and snap my fingers, you will feel alert. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And snap your fingers. So yeah, this is giving hypnotism. Getting hypnotized. Now, what I want to say quickly before I go into... there's all these references of all this other stuff. We're not going to look at this right now. What I want to talk about, now that we've done this, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. I'll look over it before I talk about the other stuff in the rest of the half of this book, because I don't want to just be flicking through when I could be, and you guys are just staring at me like flicking through the book. What do I want to say here? What I want to say here is that clearly this whole process, it reminds me of this whole process here. Essentially what they're saying is we're going to get all these informations and we're going to cancel it and we're going to delete it. But it sounds like what we're doing really is we're just hypnotizing people. Now, what I think genuinely about this kind of thing is it's very demonic. And I want to explain why I feel like it's very demonic. Our minds are very powerful. God created our minds to be powerful. God created us as spiritual beings. That is why the kingdom of darkness is working so hard to get us not to see this, to believe in a spiritual world or believe that we are spiritual beings, because then we would realize just how powerful we are. That's why when you have all of these, counterfeit belief systems that are like the power with the mind, whatever you think is what you will create. That's true. The Bible even says that your God was listening to our thoughts. Like that, it's not the universe. like just the universe alone. It is God and the spiritual world. The system he created is that we as humans, like he gave us dominion, he gave us power on earth. Like I said, he made us in his image to be able to do things on earth and engage with the spiritual world that is a part of it. And so there are practices that people do to tap into these types of experiences. And for me, the mind is a really big one. The mind is a big one. That's why a lot of people, when they go into like a lot of this new age stuff, they start meditating in silence for 4 hours and they empty their mind, right? Which is something that God never tells us to do. God tells us to do the opposite. He tells us to fill our mind with the truth, not to empty our mind, right? And what do those people end up doing? They end up having these crazy experiences where they're seeing themselves at the top corner of the wall, or they're having all these wild spiritual experiences. It goes back to something that the Bible says, which is that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. But notice how it says the way, as in there are other ways to interact in the spiritual world. Now, those are not safe ways, and those are not ways you want to enter, just like this whole ayahuasca thing. And this is what I'm saying. There's all of these counterfeit options to how to get what is on offer for free with God, not in some weird religion, some weird culty religion like this. But of course, because we are hardwired, because our flesh wants us to be, gods in our own lives, we would rather try to create ourselves to be gods rather than just trusting in God himself, who is God, right? To be God, right? And so with all of this, it's very much giving for me, like driving you crazy. Because what I think with God is when you tap into the spiritual world is something that our human body cannot completely contain in its entirety. And that's why I find that people who go down these pursuits of things that are very mind-based, that are mind-consuming, such as science also, because scientists do this, they go crazy going all the way down these rabbit holes. If it's not for God, guys, I would be the same. Because the reason why I even make all these videos or have all this understanding of a lot of stuff is because I'm a scientist by like my brain. So when I come across something, I obsess over it and it consumes my mind. And so it takes God going, okay, that's enough. That's enough. We're enough of that now. Let's stop, because we don't need to go lose your mind, which is why you see a lot of scientists completely lose their minds, going down these rabbit holes of things. And I've had to learn with God where you draw the line. This is a similar thing here with the Scientology, because remember, this process that the people are going through, it's not just that you're doing this. The goal that they're not saying in this guide, but that we know because I've been telling you guys from the research, is that they're trying to get you to go back to the day you were born, which to try and get back far to that type of memory is a wild ride, right? We're already doing the hypnotism. They're not calling it that. They're very smart in Scientology not to use the triggering terminologies, right? That give people certain types of feelings, such as therapy. Because that was something that I even said to the guy that I was auditing. He's like, we don't do therapy, we do auditing. I tried to say that as a positive, because I told him that, I was like, I'm not really interested in therapy, which I'm not. And I'm not interested in auditing either, because I'm interested in God is my therapy. I do therapy with the Lord. And that therapy is better than anything anybody else can offer, to be completely honest with you, right? And I know some people are going to be like, oh, but it's good to talk to somebody. Well, not really, actually. A lot of therapists these days, I've heard of women just divorcing because their therapist is all like, yeah, forget your husband, all this stuff. It's getting crazy in this world, right? So I'm like, anyway, my issues are, I understand on a spiritual level, I need to have I believe that issues start in the spiritual world and need to be dealt with in the spirit. So that's just my thing, okay? Not judging anybody who goes to therapy. I think it's beneficial for some people. I've even put people I know in therapy on their behalf, knowing that it would benefit them. But anyways, my point being here, they do this thing of like, oh, it's not like what these other things are. We're doing something different. But in reality, it's almost like the perfect amalgamation of all of the worst parts of all the religions put together in a weird kind of way. All the worst belief systems put together and just hidden behind the fact that they call themselves a church. So obviously we live in a world where it's like, oh, well, if you attack us as Scientology, then you're attacking the church. And you can't attack the church. That's like attacking God. And do you know what happens if you attack God? Even though they don't believe in one God, because they believe Thetans are the highest level spiritual being in the first place. And there is no one supreme God according to Scientology. So they're just a very good, very intelligent, very well thought out religion that just kind of has thought perfectly about how do we cover all of our bases so that it's hard for people to even question or even critique exactly what we're doing. How have we done that? They've done it this way. They've done it by the fact that it's hard for us to critique the stuff that they're doing, because 1 minute we're talking science, e-meters, but what they're doing as far as going back in your brain and all of this stuff, and then especially when you add on the Thetans and that you now need to go to this Thetan, that's going into the spiritual world, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be the one to tell you. That's taking you into the spiritual world. When you go back past your birth and you go past OT3, I believe it's called, I'll probably do the different levels in more detail as a separate video, the different levels of this auditing. They do this, like, you then have to find the thetans attached to you. You guys would have heard from the previous videos. So one thing that starts out sounding properly scientific, and notice how in the description, according to Scientology.org, they like to say, oh, this is something that's quantitative, it's quantifiable, yada, 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 right? Interestingly enough, the guy who originally created this electropsychometer, who was not L. Ron Hubbard just got it from him and then copyrighted it, as he did a lot of things that he did, L. Ron Hubbard, and then kind of talks about it like it's something he did, or rather, he influenced the guy who made it, because the initial guy who made it, who was called, hold on, I think I've got the notes here, he was actually a chiropractor, the initial guy who made this thing. And what he used to do is he used to use this electropsychometer to, it would give off, I think, signals at specific points of pain on somebody's body, only on the specific points. Yeah, so it used to be called the Matheson Model B electropsychometer. And so the purposes of this, as far as according to the guy who created it, in fact, I think that was also stolen from another guy who was called Jung, if I'm not mistaken. But the basis before was that, we utilize this. The way I was reading through this, it was one of those, like, again, they're just saying a lot of stuff without saying anything. But the gist that I got off of it was he was explaining that this whole thing works for when you're in therapy. When people go to therapy, initially it's a honeymoon period. It's nice to talk to somebody, but eventually plateau because it's not so interesting anymore. Eventually, that person who you're speaking to, the therapist, gets to their level of where they're no longer qualified to really do too much, right? Which a lot of people, the parts that they have before that are enough. Having somebody to listen to you, having somebody that asks helpful questions is beneficial. For some people, it gets to the point where it's no longer helpful. You start looking for other therapists, you give up on therapy altogether, you're still in a mess. So they were looking for a way to keep people incentivized into that kind of process. And therefore the electropsychometer, because it's something that you can show somebody, again, a quantifiable result of progress, because that's how we are as people, right? Which sometimes it shoots us in the foot that we're a little bit overly obsessed with being able to see physical proof of something. Sometimes that backfires on us, especially in this type of way, because we're being told and being sold by people who understand better than you do the science, that this is, when you see this means that this is quantifiable, this is science is fact. Although I'll be the first to tell you, as somebody who studied a degree, the thing that I took away from studying my degree, one of the many things, was that, okay, so scientists don't know anything. Half of the equations that we use assumptions, approximations, the Born-Oppenheimer approximation is one, for example. There's all of these different equations that we use in science. A lot of the numbers are assumptions. A lot of them have been calculated. A lot of things get disproved. Just like I talked about in the Science versus God video, people consider Albert Einstein one of the most intelligent minds. He was, but guess what? He believed that the universe was static. It took Georges Lemaitre, who came after him, who is the precursor to how he came to this Big Bang theory, who proved that the universe was not static, but indeed expanding. So again, scientists are always limited. So I walked away from science realizing that these are just working theories. Science is a working theory in and of itself. It's not it's not a fact. It's not a fact. Do you see what I'm saying? But obviously to the average person who trusts in science and the way that the media and everyone in the world and the government portrays it to us and indoctrinates us, is that this is fact, this is something to trust in. So people want to do this type of stuff. But what I'm trying to say here is this, for me, seems something very sketchy because I know for a fact that when it comes to the mind, there's a reason why God talks so much about what we put into our mind, how we structure our minds, and how we should have a mind of Christ, how we should, have the Holy Spirit dwelling inside of us, how we go through these processes with God, how we should read the scriptures. There's a reason for that. The reason is he knows that there are other powers trying to take advantage. And this is why I believe that a lot of people go crazy going down these rabbit holes, whether it be science, whether it be New Age, whether it be Scientology, because your mind and the spiritual energy space that's supposed to be taken in the way, which is Jesus, that is safe for you, you end up taking another way. And it breaks your mind. And I see it happen all the time, especially when people start doing all these things like, oh, we went to the mountains to do ayahuasca. Oh, I went to go and do yoga training in Thailand and I learned this. Oh, I'm studying this scientific thing, and it drives you crazy and you end up dying because you weren't eating, because you're so obsessed 20 hours a day trying to just find the answer to this one equation, which is basically you're just trying to prove God doesn't exist. Because that's what true scientists who are obsessed are, just trying to prove that God doesn't exist, right? Or this New Age thing, there's always another book, there's always another level of chakra. Like that's what they do. These never-ending changing journeys of knowledge and depth and having to go deeper that just ultimately breaks your mind. And that sounds like something that comes straight from the power, straight from the pits of hell, right? Because the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. What better way than to keep dangling the carrot in front of you, dragging you along, driving you crazy until you just explode and implode, and who cares? No one knows that the enemy has done what he needs to do, and then he moves on to his next victim. So that's what I've understood about this, guys. There's going to be so much more we're going to have to say about this. Like I said, this Scientology thing, there's a lot to cover. So let me know, guys, if there's any particular areas you want me to cover, or also if anybody knows where I can watch this Leah Remini documentary, I'll be so grateful. Please stay tuned. I'll see you guys tomorrow, because if life's a game, let's play to win. I know this is heavy, y'all, but we're doing this because I want to help people. I want to be able to form a basis of understanding for us all so that we can actually help the people, not just try and help from a place of ignorance, help from a place of understanding and knowing the enemy that we're dealing with. So who goes into a battle and doesn't want to understand their enemy? You feel me? Understand your enemy before you go in and attack if you can. That's how I look at it. Anyways, God bless you all, and I'll see you in my next one.